Bear with me here if anybody is here. Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, great. You can hear me? All right. I don't know how to change the title of this, but I'm just going to send the link here. Copy link. Awesome, awesome. So, just close this. Looks like we are good to go. And all right, got a few here. Howdy, what's up with Sarah? No, Andy, it's actually with Mandy. However, I don't know how to change the name of this from my previous live, so I'll have to figure that out. It's definitely not a 20-member Printify Premium giveaway this time. You guys said you can hear me. How is my volume? Is it okay? Background noise isn't too bad, I hope. All good. All right, right on. Volume is good. Sounds great. Perfect. That's great. Just give it a few minutes for Mandy to join here, making sure she saw my message. Browser update. All right. No worries. Mandy just said she's got browser update going on here. So, yeah, it is a beautiful day here. Sorry, Heather. Mandy is updating her browser, so she'll be, coming shortly. Yeah, it's, relaxed Zen nature. That's exactly kind of how it feels out here right now. It's been a pretty awesome 2 months in Belize. Not gonna lie. Yes, Belize. It's been a long time coming. We've been planning for this, my wife and I, for I don't know, say 5 or 6 years ago. We made the decision to make the move, and then it was just a matter of time. Like you gotta plan certain things out and make sure that things are taken care of on our own personal ends. And yeah, might hear some background noise down there, but hopefully it won't be too much. Lots of rain and wind in the UK. Well, that sucks. What's up, Don? Hey, Debbie. Hey, Rhonda. How's everybody? What's going on? Is everybody freaking out about this email stuff? I think it's kind of crazy to think that it's going to be anything that anyone should be up in arms about anyway. There's Mandy. What's going on, Mandy? Can you hear me okay?
Hello, I can. Can you hear me all right?
I sure can. All right. So, unfortunately,
Fabulous.
you got the link to the YouTube, right?
Yeah.
For watching and mute for chat.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I don't know why I still got the 20,000 member giveaway that I did with Sarah. So, it's not Sarah, it's Mandy. I can't seem to delete that for some reason. So, Jim, why Belize out of interest? Man, my wife and I just loved traveling, and we kind of got smitten with Costa Rica was our first big long trip, and then we came to Belize and kind of got smitten with Belize, and then it's the only English-speaking Central American country, so that made it really easy, and we have friends here, so getting kind of the ins and outs and the lay of the land was a lot easier, really. But Costa Rica still has a piece of our heart, and there's lots of other places we want to visit too. I think Belize going forward is just going to be our home base sort of thing. So, what's up, Mandy? How are you?
I am good.
Awesome.
How is
Just
everyone? I saw someone already asking for me. Hi, Heather.
yeah, yeah. There's a person or two there. Good. Your audio sounds good to me too. That's great. So, yeah, I guess I just kind of reached out to Mandy. Said, "Hey, want to go live with me?" Some people are freaking out a little bit. I feel already, and I think unnecessarily, right? You're one level-headed person that I think, you know, I mean, yeah, before everyone gets all kinds of weird misinformation and stuff like that, right? So, uh, thought we should head this off at the pass.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You see these emails, especially when there's no warning. It can be alarming. I get it. But I've been through a few ups and downs and surprises. And with my, especially when I was in project management, things go wrong. Surprises happen. Stuff breaks. Vendors
All,
change stuff.
all the
Integrations
time, all the
break.
time, right?
At least this one you get a heads up. I mean, I know there's been in the past, there's been weird Etsy integrations with like Printify where stuff breaks and you don't know why. So I mean, at least we can plan for it, right? So there's
Totally.
silver lining to all of this.
I totally agree. And you had a great post in there in the Printify Rockstars group. If you guys haven't joined that group yet, definitely go check it out. But one of your first posts, your first lines that kind of stands out after the second paragraph there is like, take a deep breath, don't panic. Um, I'm just going to, if I can, pull up the picture of that email. Yeah, so somebody shared it in my group too, and I'm just gonna share screen, see if this works.
Someone was asking in the chat, does it mean the emails we get from Etsy about each sale won't have the customer's email in it? I don't believe so. I think that will all stay the same. This is more so related to the third party integrations that Etsy has and the information that they send to them. Because APIs, those third party integrations, are based largely on data fields. And so that email address data field is no longer going to be sent to these third party integrations. I don't think, I mean, we don't know for sure, obviously, but I don't think we'll see a change there because sometimes those emails are needed if we can't get a hold of customers through the normal Etsy messages. So I
Yeah,
don't foresee that changing. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't foresee that being part of at least this particular update. It's more so about Etsy choosing no longer to share that field with other integrations.
and to be honest, I think that's probably a good thing. And I just shared the screen here. I just want to highlight. It says that's why we're going to stop sharing buyers' email addresses with certain third-party integrations on February 5th. And then it goes on to, it proceeds to list every third-party integration that you may have, right? So this isn't necessarily just saying that they're going to kibosh every third-party integration you have. It doesn't mean that if you're, you know, if you're using eRank, for example, it does not mean that you're not going to be able to use eRank any longer. They've actually never collected emails, so it just doesn't impact them or you or your I guess your what do you call it, integration with eRank and your Etsy store in any way at all that way. It just shows in that email that like literally every third party app you have integrated with your Etsy shop. So uh, I don't think I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be anything to worry about that way. Um, I also think it's a good thing that Etsy is kind of stopping third party apps in some sense of having access to this stuff, right? I mean, customer privacy. I, I struggle with this one too. Like, this is kind of like I don't have any preconceived kind of ideas about this, but it's just kind of an open forum that, and I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want, I guess, third party apps having necessarily access to all of my emails. That said, you were saying, like, with Allura and I believe Aweber, you can still have your a landing page where you can direct people to, right? But at least it gives them more of it gives people opting in more of the control, which I think is probably the best, most important thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I suspect that, Etsy, as much as we don't like to think it, they're not just randomly making these choices. I mean, there was a reason that they did it, and my guess is they probably started getting complaints from customers, even with just that initial opt-in email, even though you're not sending them anything else other than an automated opt-in. A customer is probably thinking, I didn't give permission to, how they get my email address from this, because it's not coming from Etsy when you have that initial integration. So, I can see both sides. But like I said, it was a nice to have because it's been there and it's been there for a long time. Aweber's been around for a very long time. They were one of the few integrations that was there for many, many years. And we saw that disappear on their integration page. I've seen that in a few groups, like, oh, this disappeared. Now we know why. Um, and so I think that's part of it. When you have your own website, you can do those pop-in, those opt-ins, pop-ups, things like that. But traditionally, with email marketing, like with my handmade business, when I'm driving traffic to my shop from somewhere else, it's often in the form of having a little link in there, goes to a landing page. If they're on my website, they get all that, but you don't have that luxury with Etsy, right? So you need another vehicle to do that. So some of these systems with the integrations made that easy. With the opt-in, it was automated, but once you set that up, then you could do different things. You had to get that okay first. You always have to have that okay. That is required with email and opt-ins and things like that. But having landing pages, that's one email marketing 101. That's just one of those things you set up when you are really thinking more about having a business and a brand and starting to build that customer relationship. We don't think of that a lot of the time, especially with Etsy, because this is, for many sellers, their first kind of tiptoe into owning a business and selling products and things like that. So that's new. So it's not one of those things that we necessarily throw at new Etsy sellers when we're saying, hey, set up these things to get your shop going. It's like, figure out the basics first and then get there. But, once you're established, having that, it's a great tool. I still absolutely think that people should be, this should not be a discouragement by any means to not move forward with having an email list. I don't think that should be the takeaway at all. Like, keep building that, use a landing page, and keep moving forward so that you have it, because we don't know Etsy. They make changes all the time. You get your email list.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that we don't, is this a bump in the road? Is it a bummer to not have, an automated component to it?
Of course.
Sure. Automations are sweet. Who's going to turn down that? But at the end of the day, it's still, my mantra is everything is figure outable. I think it's yours too, Jay. We both have the same mantra.
Sure.
Everything is
Yeah.
figure
Absolutely.
outable, and this is, we pivot, we adjust, and we keep things rolling.
Yeah, and I mean, on that note, it's I think imperative. Like I've said this so many times too, that like yes, there's ways to automate things, and pushing from a platform to Etsy or whatever your POD platform. I think it's imperative for everyone to learn how to list and use the platform they intend to sell on, right? Prior to or in addition to pushing from wherever you're pushing from, or extracting emails from wherever you're extracting emails from, because specifically in cases like this, if something happens, or a third party integration or API is booted from whatever sales channel you're selling on, now what? Now you're screwed. Maybe you're 2 years in and you've got like tons of sales, but you have no idea how to fix things now, right? So those are the kind of things, like the nuts and bolts of it all, that I think everybody should learn. I think it's absolutely crucial. Um, Something you said about the emails there too. The other thing, I think I agree with you in that I think it could have come, probably like everything big that happens that way, somebody threatening something or coming with like a massive complaint about something like to do with this stuff, right? And I think a lot of it also is because customers have been frustrated. I've had a few reviews from customers that just say, like, some are funny and there's like five great shirt, 3 more words, because they have to have a minimum of 5 words in the review. And others have just been like 1 star or 2 star. And we've seen these in the groups posted, like 2 stars. No, I don't want to leave a review. Blah blah blah. Right? The product was
It
fine,
gets
but
taken out on the seller. I know.
yeah,
It's so
totally.
unfortunate.
And I just think buyers are being peppered, right? So like one of the things with the automation of collecting these emails is that I've been a proponent of trying to use these to collect the emails, just because it makes it so easy with some of these integrations like the Everbee one. But it's also up to you to set how long or few and far between those emails are sent, right? Which is a nice thing. And I don't like to be peppered with emails, so I'm not going to leave it at certain defaults or whatever it might be. If it's like every day or every other day, I want a minimum 7 days in between. I don't want my customers to be upset. The idea is to be able to use warm leads and market to them directly when you have new drops, not to annoy them. That is the opposite of what you want to do ultimately. So yeah, I think there's a lot there too, and I think like with everything else, there's it's just I guess reiterating the idea of like having to know how to create a landing page and collect emails anyway, because people don't like talking about collecting emails. It feels like it's like something from the year 2000. You know what I mean? It just seems primitive, but it's like it's crucial. Like, think of everything you've ever signed up for or bought online. You get those email pop-ups, and like for me, it's always been a way to, I guess, gather some interesting niche research too, right? Any magazines or e-publications you're on, I get on those email lists because they're going to give you all the newest updates and the newest goings on within those niches that that you're interested in too. So I think the value is definitely there, and I think it's absolutely worthwhile, especially if you're niched in any way, because you can definitely hit that warm market, right? So, yeah. What do you guys think out there? Let us know in YouTube land. Give us some questions or thoughts, or have you guys tried to collect emails? Are you guys like worried about any of this stuff? I really don't think there's much to worry about. I just feel bad for some who may have wanted to be all automated, and now you got to do a little bit of manual work. But I think to be determined how it's going to impact everything overall.
And I feel like what I see with even just Etsy emails in general, I mean, we have to remember that having these automations is nice, but you also have to think very carefully about how you use them. I mean, email marketing in general, the goal is not to be annoying. The goal is to be strategic in how in building a relationship and having different avenues to drive sales over time in different ways. But, remember the customer. I always go back to the customer experience. Customers are getting that initial order confirmation. they're getting a notification when their order ships. They're getting another notification when it's out for delivery. They're getting another notification from Etsy when it's delivered. And then they get not one, but typically more over a period of time, reminders to do reviews. So if
Yeah.
we're not careful and if we're continuing to just duplicate all those efforts and that's all we're doing and we're not adding any value outside of that, you're going to have unsubscribes. You're not going to have the goal,
Yeah.
which is, an email list. And long term, the goal is building the customer relationship with those email lists. So it's kind of a double edged sword that you have to be careful. And, that's the reminder too, just in this conversation is don't just turn it on and use all that, all the defaults and not think about that customer experience. Because again, the personalization with, having, maybe products in there. I know some of them you could link products, you could, do different things, and that's nice. But again, think about the customer experience, what they're already getting. I'm a frequent Etsy user.
Yeah.
I buy stuff all the time from Etsy. So I see exactly how many notifications you get with that. I mean, and it's a lot. And if then you're just essentially duplicating that and not necessarily adding anything else to the conversation, it can be a little sketchy there because like I said, some customers will get super annoyed
For sure, it's
by
tacky,
that
right?
really quickly. Yeah, and you don't want that effect either. So it's a careful balance.
Yeah, I mean, I hate getting peppered with all this stuff too, and I agree. I don't know. Again, I think this is probably a good thing in that it's going to give us as sellers. It puts the onus kind of on us as sellers to take action and collect those emails in a more intentional way too, because then we're controlling the immediate like the frequency of those going out instead of kind of setting it and forgetting it and then wondering why maybe you're only getting one or two a month because you forgot to flip a switch somewhere and kind of slow down. But I don't know. I struggle with like collecting emails and using those email lists or having it set kind of automated too if you don't have relevant content to deliver to your audience. Like if it's all just about the transaction, then it just feels kind of slimy or salesy in a way. These are things that you're going to want to, I mean you can use AI, you can use chat GPT for like conversation topics, a little blurb about something to email it'll twice every other week or something to your email list, like relevant to the niche you're selling in, right? I think it's different than, like you said, like we get so many emails from Etsy. It's kind of ridiculous to be honest. Like we don't need to know all of those things. And then the other thing is like you have to be opted in to get all the notifications for sales and the discount coupons and stuff like that from a seller perspective. So being able to have an email list that people opt into separately is a great way to be able to at least hammer home some coupons and stuff like that, or when you're new drop.
And that's what I've talked about is like for anyone who's gone through the course that I have as a playlist on my channel, one of the very last module is essentially about traffic. And one of that is, ironically enough, starting an email list, not necessarily to just start feeling like you're going to start hammering out all these emails. As a new seller, you're not. Like,
No.
this is not high on the priority list. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, the point is you start it. You start collecting.
Just
And
collect.
then once you figure out all the other stuff, and then once you get comfortable with all the other stuff, then figure it out. And then figure out what you want your strategy to be, because then by the time you're ready, you'll at least have started collecting. Like I said, historically it's been collecting of just turn it on. Like I said, I used Aweber just to set it up for the dog shop that I use for the purposes of my channel. And that's easy enough to do. Like I said, now the automated opt-in's gone. You pivot. You set up a landing page instead. You send people there. Someone in the Printify group, I didn't think of it immediately at the time when I posted, but commented on my post and had the brilliant idea of, if you sell through different providers through Printify that have the branded inserts, have a QR code on there with your landing page. Because I was just in Aweber this morning looking. I mean, you set it up. you could even be as simple as just add your logo in there and say, use a little blurb about your shop or something like that to make it personable. And then it's, name, email address, button. That's it. Like landing pages to get started. We don't need to overcomplicate these things. It's as simple as that. But then you get essentially a link to that direct landing page. And that is the link. I know people have asked about what do you do with that? You get that link, and then that link is what you put in your announcement. Put it, you can easily do a bulk update on your listings. Add it there. Subscribe to our email address.
Yeah,
Um,
those are the
you could
great
have
ones.
in Canva, make a QR code, drop that QR code. You can even put it as a listing photo along with the link, depending on how people, again, customer experience, how are they viewing it. If they're looking at your listing on their screen on a computer, they can hold up their phone, take a picture of the QR just right from there. Or, if they just need a link, they can, copy and paste that in if needed if they're on a mobile. But again, a QR code on the branded insert, if you're, if you're doing print on
Yeah,
demand, which a lot of our audience is, drop it on a branded insert. There you go. And
that's
again,
something
you
I've said a few times
incentivize
too.
it with a coupon. Make it worth their while. Customers, like you said, are inundated with emails from everywhere. I mean, people subscribe to millions of things. I think I have like 3,000 unread emails between all of mine at the moment. It's not good. But, people are inundated with emails, so make it worth their while if they're interested in your shop. Have a really nice coupon code that's higher than maybe your normal. You might lose a buck or two in profit on that, but so what? Getting them on your email list and having that long-term customer is worth so much more
Oh
in
yeah,
the
that
long
branded
run.
insert. Like, what was that? It was 10 cents at the time. Like, that's one thing I was
Yeah.
saying when I was. I have a video about that too. It was like literally put your email list QR code on the branded insert, or have it right in your, in your listing photos, like you said. The other thing is like with the share and save links, you can have those in there also, right? Like you have an option. But yeah, you can list your landing page in your, in your, the what do you call it, shop announcement there, and like say, like sign up to our email list for 20% off coupon, right? And it's like just incentivizing the signups. I mean, any customer who's in there will take. I mean, I've done it just to do that, and then I've even deleted or like removed myself or unsubscribed from the email list, right? Like you don't necessarily have to, you know, be a part of that list if you're, getting too many emails and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think it's an easy win. Um, I wouldn't think that. I think the crucial thing is to think like the customer again, though, right? Like, what would incentivize you, or what has incentivized you in the past to sort of, to join these email lists, right? Like, I don't know. It's an easy one for me. I think in terms of slapping something on there. The QR codes, like you can just Google a free QR code if you're not using, the Canva or whatever. Does Canva have its own QR code generator? Is that what you were saying? Ah,
Yeah,
wow,
it's
that
just
makes it
an
easy. I
app
didn't
on
even know
there.
that.
It's real nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
And
just
so you
Googled
can
them for
integrate
free.
it right with your branded insert because I make everything in Canva. So I make
Yeah,
it there, export it, drop it in Printify, call it a day.
yeah. Well, that's the easy one, right? I don't know. Um, uh, being able to process anything. Yeah, okay. Just trying to see now what the other one was. Yeah, because like you know, what was it? Third-party integrations, confusing, potentially unsafe, or familiar. Yeah, Etsy's kind of saying here that they want all the communications to happen through messages, and I guess, at the end of the day, that also protects us a lot of the time too from, any buyer pushback, or like trying to leverage their or even get, with review extortion and stuff like that too, right? So I don't know. I guess keeping it all on Etsy is probably not a bad thing from Etsy's
Oh,
perspective,
yeah.
but
I recommend it whenever I see it. So if I'm doing shop reviews, if I see that in there, I'm like, if it's in like their FAQ or their announcement, I'm like, take it out of there. If they have their email address, like, oh, if there's a
yeah,
problem, contact my email. No, you want that running as much as possible through Etsy because if something goes wrong, I'm not saying Etsy is always the greatest for, you know,
For having
helping
our
a seller
backs,
out.
yeah.
But, let's just say it legitimately goes wrong, and you need their help, or you need to, say we had this conversation or whatever. Etsy can see it. Again, it's their platform. Etsy can see, Etsy messages. I had a horrible customer one time where I'm like, they are harassing and being awful, and you need to shut this down. And they could go right into my messages, see it, and go tell this customer to go away. And so, it's there for a reason, and we need to use that, because if you start sending customers to your email or they're contacting you about an issue with an order, Etsy, you're on your own at that point. I'm not saying you can't resolve it, but you're on your own at that point.
Sure,
So
yeah,
I'm
there's no
like,
recourse, right?
always
And
go through Etsy if you can, unless there's like, a special file or something that's just not working. But short of that, go through Etsy messages always.
yeah, and even that way too, like when customers are, like custom orders and stuff like that, right? Maybe they want to send you artwork and stuff. There's ways, like you can send them a Dropbox link or something for them to drop the artwork in without having like via email and stuff like that. But or if they have to share, you could do it through Etsy Combo. And that's one of the things that I like what you said there too, because like I remember I want to say a year or two ago, Stacy had a customer that was just being belligerent, and they had threatened to leave, the bad reviews and stuff like that. So Etsy kind of, lodged a complaint with Etsy, or Stacy lodged a complaint with Etsy about the customer already, and it was a no-brainer. She left the review; it got removed already, like before Stacy was able to kind of like report the review. And they said, "Yeah, absolutely no problem. We see what you're talking about. We see the conversation history here. Yeah, you've done everything in your power to kind of appease this person." And they've continued to be, I guess just not a very nice person at the end of the day. So, um, yeah, I mean, it protects us too. It's frustrating, and I feel feel bad because there were people that I had seen, I guess YouTubers, unfortunately, promoting that kind of stuff, and like, just use your email and blah 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 blah. You can put it everywhere, and then you can talk one on one and maybe encourage sales off the platform and things like that. And like that's a slippery slope, because Etsy's an easy way in terms of e-commerce to get sales, and like the last thing you want to do is be skirting their payment gateways by what and violating the terms of service at the same time, because you cannot direct anybody off of Etsy from Etsy. It's just a big no-no. So it's frustrating to see sometimes, but again, that's why I created the YouTube channel, right? It was kind of to debunk some misinformation. So how to grow a POD business? So many ways, my friend. You're gonna have to ask a way more specific question.
All the things.
Yeah, how not to in 2024, right? So many options. Are you getting the scoop on any new goings on there? It's the only one email. I don't see this being anything to really worry about. So let's. It's literally every third-party app. It says thanks for helping protect shoppers' privacy and keep Etsy safe. I mean, I think it's protecting sellers too in a good way. Yeah, Amazon with Printify. I'm going to be working on that for sure. We're going to keep this one kind of related to Etsy and the email from Etsy that we all got this morning. So, but yeah, definitely, you'll get updated when I drop some Amazon with Printify stuff. I'm kind of excited to get that going, because if you guys know anything about Merch by Amazon, they can be really, really strict. So it's just nice to be able to have alternative sources of revenue. Anyway, need a recap? Missed the beginning? Sure. So Etsy set out. Yeah, fair enough. For those of you joining us, Etsy sent out an email this morning about third-party apps and integrations being Kibosh. When was it? February 5th, I think.
Yep, February 5th.
Yeah. So and within that email, it showed every third-party integration you had. So maybe you had like, I don't know, Sales Samurai or Everbee or eRank. And so some people were saying, well, it's going to impact my eRank. Well, eRank, for example, has never collected emails, so it's not going to impact anything that way. It's more about uh, third-party integrations, collecting, email opt-ins specifically. So yeah, and there's just some people. Mandy and I just wanted to get kind of ahead of some of the panic that was out there, which I think massively unnecessarily, and some of the hype. Right, some people are going to leverage this as a way to build hype and sell things and do things, but or to maybe even sell new services. Right, so I think any of that is. Oh, you're so welcome. I think any of that is kind of capitalistic in a way that I don't think would be necessarily beneficial for everybody, right? Like this is learning how to grow an email list. I think is one of the foundational. It's like business 101, marketing 101. Well, marketing 101 really is going to start there. Build the list and then build your content specific to that list. So yeah, I hope this makes sense. Hope the recap works for you, Catherine. Thanks for joining, by the way. Late is better than not at all. But yeah, I think like it was just kind of like with every other announcement Etsy makes, it just seems so vague sometimes, and you know, it's just like what's going on? What is how is it going to impact everything? So if you collected emails, no, it's not going to impact your email list. Was worried that if it would affect the email list, like they want us to use what they offered. Well, I mean, I think that may be what's happening, and it doesn't mean that Aweber still won't be a part of Etsy, right? Like it doesn't mean because Etsy was tooting that. That's in their one of their things that they were kind of advertising, right? It was like use Aweber, grow your email list here. So I don't know if that's going to be. I mean, it's all to be determined, and this is nothing we're saying here is anything above and beyond speculation because they haven't really dropped any other information that way.
Yeah, from what I've heard, I haven't looked at it myself. I suppose I could just while I'm sitting here. Um, I heard someone say that the integration did drop off of showing up on Etsy. So I
The
think they
Aweber
may
one,
be
okay.
becoming more neutral in that regard. But again, if they're dropping one email, integration, they're going to drop them all. I don't think Etsy's going to make a stance on one particular provider in that regard. Um, Someone mentioned in response to my post in Printify, or it was speculation question mark kind of a thing of, perhaps Etsy is maybe planning something of their own to integrate, which honestly is a marketplace platform. I wouldn't be terribly surprised. Like I use a marketplace platform that's wholesale based for my handmade business, and you can send email campaigns through there, but I'm just going to take a stance on it now. Like if they do that, I I would probably still I know I would still be doing both because again, if something's happening on one platform, one marketplace, Etsy still owns that. That is their platform versus if you're building it on your own somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's kind of the beauty of it. And that's why I tend to be more of a proponent of um, platform neutral email marketing, you know, websites. So Aweber, that needs to be said too. Aweber is a platform neutral email service. You can integrate it with Etsy. You
So
can
many
integrate
other.
it with Shopify. There's a whole, I was looking at it this morning because I wanted to confirm I wasn't wrong about it, but you can integrate with lots of websites. You can integrate it with Zapier if you want to zap it to some other platform if you're getting really advanced. But you can do lots of integrations, and I think that's important, especially because there are lots of conversations around, having a backup plan, having your products integrated somewhere else, kind of a thing, or having, running your shop, running your business on multiple platforms, Etsy, Shopify, whatever it might be. So I think, when we think as, we have to think like business owners. I know a lot of people start with Etsy as, this just little thing, but a lot of sellers are very vested in this and are going into this wanting to start a business and run a product based business long term. And if you have any sort of inklings that you might want to do that, you've got to put on your other little business hat and think about, the decisions that you make and what makes the most sense based on kind of how you want to run your business long term. Doesn't mean you can't change it. And even if you're starting with a platform, like Allura, for example, it has, yes, its opt in is going away, but you can do a landing page. Allura is an Etsy only email or Etsy only platform. You can do SEO, you can do keywords, you can do email. Now they added that. I'm not sure when they added it. It was fairly recently, but you can do email. But again, it's Etsy centric. Now you can export that list, but there's going to be extra steps down the road versus why I've always recommended, AWeber, she ain't the prettiest girl at the ball, she ain't fancy, but she gets the job done. So, and
Yeah,
that's the
and
point.
relatively easily too. Yeah.
It's easy. I mean, it's pretty utilitarian. I mean, it's not fancy, but they've made some improvements over the years since the first time I used it years ago, when I started on Etsy. But it gets the job done. You can do what you need to do. You can create nice emails once you get ready and feel comfortable to do that.
Yeah.
So
Be super.
there are
It,
lots of options.
like, I'm just thinking about the idea of like Etsy leveraging those emails too, right? Because it makes sense for them because they don't otherwise, right? It's just the abandoned cart stuff that they've opted in. But if they could, somehow let us access those emails, but only to have an email list for our specific shops, then we may not ever even see those emails. It'll just be like potential first names or something, right? Like, and that way Etsy retains proprietary rights to those emails. You got me thinking there. That's interesting. So we would be able to do everything we would do with all those third-party
It'll look
integrations.
shiny. If they do
Oh
it,
yeah,
it's going to look shiny and it's going to look great.
and
I mean, like I said,
yeah,
as soon as someone said that in the group, I'm like, I bet you're on to something. Because, like I said, everyone else does it, right? Everyone else is doing email marketing. It's huge. A lot of people, like you said earlier, think email's dead. It's not. I mean,
no, not
it's
yeah,
especially if they, start integrating it with, messaging for mobile or doing like SMS marketing. I think the open rate for SMS text, as a form of marketing is even higher
yeah.
than emails. So it stands to reason that that could be one of their next big things. I mean,
And
only
it
time will tell. This is only
sure,
speculation, right?
absolutely,
But
but they'd be
from a business
almost.
standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, you'd almost think they'd be stupid not to because they can then control all of that and retain the customer email. So we wouldn't even be able to leverage that list off of Etsy if Etsy does this properly, right? Like they
Yep,
they
especially
only
if they
allow
said
us.
you're not getting it.
Right. Yeah. So we are able to communicate to every customer that's opted into our email list through Etsy. However, we will only be able to communicate with them through Etsy, right? Through whatever kind of integration they end up having there. So it's pretty interesting to think about that way. And I think that would make so much sense. Like for them to have, allowed a couple of other third-party apps to integrate that way. It didn't take long, right, before you're hearing about this with other third-party apps, and then a couple months later, Etsy's like, wait a minute, you know, of course, all speculation, but like, wait a minute, what are we doing? We're giving the customers access to all, or sellers access to all of our customer email database. Like, why don't we retain proprietary rights on that, right?
And it
And I think,
takes them
yeah,
off of Etsy, right? Etsy does not want people leaving
correct. That's what I
Etsy.
mean.
And
That
so,
keeps it
like,
on
even with
Etsy.
the AWeber integration that they had in their integration, screen, it's it was specific. AWeber is a unicaster. It does email marketing, and so that logically takes them off of Etsy.
Yeah.
I want to answer really quick one of the questions. So, would sending customers to an opt-in landing page be considered leaving them off of Etsy, or is it different? And it's a very you have to do it specifically. So you can lead them off of Etsy, but you can't lead them to a page that has products on it. So you can't lead your customer on Etsy with a link that goes to like a Shopify page that has products on it.
Yeah.
You can lead them to a page that allows them to opt in to additional emails or marketing from you. That
Yeah.
is the
Ultimately,
distinction. No products, landing page.
correct. Nowhere where they can check out outside of Etsy. Ultimately,
Exactly.
no payment gateways.
It's
The
fine if that email eventually leads them somewhere else. So
Sure.
like I have like my original handmade shop is still exists on Etsy. And so when I fulfill that order and when they get messages from, from me outside of that or like on my business cards, it's got my website. It doesn't take them back to my Etsy shop there. It takes once you've got them and it's off of Etsy, you can send them anywhere you want.
Hmm.
It's more so that direct connection that is on the Etsy platform can't lead them to a page with products and a checkout.
Yeah, and the only other time you're allowed to basically contact a customer on your own accord would be to ask in a polite way for a review. So, like through Etsy, right? It all has to be what they consider transactional emails. It all has to be something related to a sale that the customer initiated. So you can't just go, 2 months later and email a previous customer 3 months later. It has to be kind of within, a logical time frame for what would be considered related to that sale, right? And then having
Right.
your email address in that respect allows you then months later to, hey, I got a new drop or a new quarterly or monthly, whatever we want to do. Indy says, brand new to this channel and POD, I'm considering which platform is best to run a store from. We should probably, we're at 47 minutes already. Maybe another, yeah, we can shut her down in maybe 10 minutes or so. So if you guys have any questions, we'll try to get through a couple of those pretty quickly. I'm considering which platform is best to run a store from. What are the advantages you found using Etsy or other platforms like Fourth Wall and Launchcart? So before I answer that, I just want to say that Mandy and I are going to be doing a live Ask Me Anything on Tuesday. Just wanted to plug that out there. Mandy
This
decided
is a
to
great
be,
little trial run, Jay.
yeah, well, it's an easy conversation when we know what we're talking about, right? But this next one on Tuesday is just going to be literally ask us honestly anything you guys have. It won't be like email centric necessarily. But the differences or advantages you found using Etsy versus platforms like Fourth Wall and Launchcart. So while not having used either of those, I can tell you that using, doing anything that is your own kind of standalone or a .com, your own kind of avenue for e-commerce. It's just you right off the bat you have to drive all your own traffic and get people to stop scrolling, interrupt them with paid advertising typically to get them to kind of pull off that information highway and pull into your dealership or whatever it is your shop, right? With Etsy, it's like going into a mall and you have shop, 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 shop. So people are there to spend money, right? Like so the inherent I guess warm leads, the marketing, the customer base, it's all there for you, right? That to me is the easiest one. You don't have the customization options that you would if you were building your own standalone shop or anything like that. But Etsy, does what they do, and even offsite ads. I mean, they're trying to stay on the map. They're trying to stay relevant. So I think it's just an easy one. I've always kind of called it like e-commerce with training wheels, right? So that's the
Exactly.
massive advantage that way. Until you get going, you want to scale. I mean, there are people arguably like there's people I've interviewed that have done six figures in under a year. Mandy's one of them, right? So like you can still scale like crazy on Etsy. It's just a lot easier than anywhere else to do it, in my opinion anyway. With 10 years of Etsy experience, what do you think about that? It's a good question.
Well, and the way I look at it is, the one of the biggest things that we always hear in all of our groups, right, Jay, is Etsy is so saturated. There's millions of sellers now. We'll think of it this way. On Etsy, there's millions of sellers. That's you against other sellers, right? How about you, brand new brand, nobody knows who you are, against the rest of the internet?
Yeah.
That's how I think of it is it might be challenging and hard. Starting a business is, not for the faint of heart sometimes, but it's going to be a lot easier and your chances are generally a lot higher to start on Etsy. Figure it out. Figure out your products, that work. Establish some customers, right? We're talking about email, full circle. We're talking about email, build your list, if being off of Etsy is your long term plan and not really your jam to just stay there, work on building your list, get those opt-ins, and then once you've gotten kind of a flavor for how e-commerce works, especially if you've never done it before, you have zero social media presence, like trying to go out and build your own shop again, unless you plan on turning on Facebook ads, Google ads, all of that, it is going to be a much deeper and much bigger investment. It's not that you can't. People do it all
and
the
and,
time. You know,
and
the
not
Joe
only
Roberts of the world, they do it all the time and they do
yeah
it beautifully.
well yeah.
But it's different. It's very different and you got to think about it.
Yeah, it's not only like, a lot of people just think, oh, it's so much more work to set up the shop. And yeah, sure. But it's not only a time investment, it's a financial investment because you're going to want to run test ads and see like engagement ads and see what's working. And Facebook's still the hot one, right? Like you're seeing people blow up. But it takes money to make money when you're running your, standalone shop that way. Where with Etsy, it's like, it's just a lot easier. You're talking 20 cents for a listing that is good for 4 months, and you're not paying any of the fees, like the overhead, the monthly fees for your standalone, your Shopify, your all the add-ins that you have. You got the spinny wheel thing that offer you that 10% coupon. All the bells and whistles. There's a lot that come for free with your standalones, depending on the platform. But there are a lot better ones that are paid options too, and yeah, it's just a lot if you don't know what you're doing to set up. And I mean, uh, my first Etsy shop or Shopify store that I opened, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago now. Oh man, I spent like two and a half months on it, and I was well into Q4. It was like, it just crushed me that I didn't get it open or launched in time. But yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, just because you can do it yourself doesn't mean you should. So if you have an opportunity to outsource that and you wanted to go that way, then I would pay a professional if you don't have any inclination of what you're doing, unless you absolutely want to learn, but then take the time to do it and don't rush it, right? Because you're not going to be able, metadata is a real thing. You're not going to be able to drive any kind of traffic to your website. It won't rank on Google if you don't have any of that data in the back end. And these are all things that come with learning curve, and I think everybody should learn them anyway. In case some of these marketplaces get shut down, it'd be great to have, now again, full circle, leverage that email list to drive people to your standalone, right? But yeah, that said, I think Etsy is just like, it's so much easier. It's just you can start an Etsy shop and have a listing done and sell something in the next 3 hours, to be quite frank. And it's
Yep.
almost impossible to do that. I mean, not impossible, but I would argue if you're new at e-commerce in any way, you're probably not going to be there today with a Shopify or launch card or whatever it is, right?
It's very different. It's so different. And for a lot of people, Etsy is a learning curve in and of itself. And that's what I tell
Sure.
people. I'm like, if Etsy is a learning curve for you, Shopify websites, Wix websites, that's a whole that's a whole other ball of wax. Like we're not talking about the same things here. And I think a lot of people underestimate that before they think they're going to leap, at the first sign of trouble with Etsy. It's like I've been on Etsy since 2017. I think you've probably been with them probably even longer. And
Yeah.
like I said, I still use them. It's not like you even have to shut down your Etsy. I still have it for my handmade business. I use it as a funnel, right? We talk about, funnels is kind of another marketing term. I leverage the traffic coming into Etsy organically. I'm not doing anything else with that shop, but I get orders coming in still for that shop. I fulfill those orders, they get my new website, and guess what? Now I have a customer somewhere else. Because
Hmm.
they're not necessarily going to remember, that they got it from, they might remember they got it from Etsy, but if they save, a little card or something like that, or they, look at the product and my website is on my product too, they go to your website. I still leverage it as a funnel because Etsy traffic is Etsy traffic. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Look,
90
that's
million people
yeah.
going to Etsy as buyers ready to buy and leverage that. Don't just,
Yeah. I mean, if you could
you
bring
don't
something
have to do pick one or the other. Do
right.
both and when you're ready for it.
And when we say you're like, it's kind of like going into a mall with ready shoppers, you're not competing with every other shop in there either, right? If you kind of bring some unique spin to it, and that's where you want to set yourself apart in there. But if, for example, you're having trouble getting sales on Etsy, there's no logical reason that you would think that you would be getting better sales or more sales on a standalone. Like Etsy is honestly like e-commerce with training wheels. I don't know how to express it any other way, right? You know, they make it easier for you to set everything up. And you don't even have to, yeah, you can do it all. I suggest you do it all, manually in the beginning, just so you know how things work. That's one thing I would actually implore everybody to do. Create a listing or two or 5 or 10 until you know how it works before you start using apps and stuff to push things. But yeah, I mean, when people ask like, why this and not that, like, the time investment. If you're coming in cold or green, it, yeah, the learning curve is massive, and that's not to say Etsy doesn't have its learning curve, like you said, but it's just like so much shorter, quite honestly. Etsy walks you through every little step of the way, and they even have little pop-up bubbles that suggest things along the way that you wouldn't necessarily have anywhere else without speaking to a professional or in the chat with like whoever's support chat of whatever platform you're on. So I mean, I don't mean to be biased in that I don't think you should not try Shopify, but if you're going to do it smart, right? Like start with Etsy, get the traffic, validate your niches, see if your products sell, see if the customers you're targeting actually are interested in what you have to offer, and then collect those emails and like Mandy said, and use the QR code with an insert to push them or send them to your for a 20% off discount to your standalone. I mean, it doesn't. There's no reason why you can't do both. Um, but yeah, I think
Well, it's a
the
great way
experience
to
you get.
learn how to be, experience exactly
Yeah.
how to run a shop, how to run a
Yep.
business, how to run e-commerce. If you're, with print on demand, which is what we do, how to connect it to your provider and make sure, you understand how the orders go through and connect and do all of their things. Understand how to do that. But not only that, start to build some of those soft skills as a business owner too. Customer service, handling those, responding to people, getting good reviews, getting bad reviews, because you'll get that too somewhere else. And what I sometimes see is people struggle with handling that and building up, a bit of resiliency in Etsy. And so I hate to see sellers, decide that running a business or a shop is not for them, having gone through those steps on a
Hmm.
platform like Etsy where you're really not out, it's very low risk. If you decide to walk away from it and you can decide it's not for you, there's no shame in that at all. But figure that out. I'd rather have someone figure that out first before they've now spent hundreds, if not thousands, on trying to start their own business
100%.
and platform somewhere else and then figure that out and then figure out I I don't know if this is like really what I'm meant to do. My last video was all about all these side hustles that I don't do anymore because they weren't for me.
Yeah.
Maybe Etsy or print on demand isn't for you, and that's okay. But figure that out before you
Yeah.
start making huge investments, you know,
You
in
could have
all
the
of the
same
things that you got to
gains
figure out.
for sure. It's way less of a commitment, time wise, financially, um, and it can be just as, if not better, just as fruitful, if not, uh, and guaranteed it'll be more fruitful faster. That's all there is to it. So if your stuff is going to fly, it's going to fly with Etsy faster than directing people and outsourcing all that traffic. Um,
Things like when they come your way, like this is a perfect example. I mean, look at why we're here, Jay, which is because we already saw the anxiety level just creep up and up and up and up and up.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that's
people need
not
to
normal and
no
that it doesn't
panic.
happen, but you gotta, as a business owner, things happen. Like things go wrong, things go sideways. Like it's gonna happen. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but at some point, you'll hit your bumps in the road, and being able to just take a breath, don't panic,
Yeah,
it's
take it all in
figure
stride.
outable.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might have to eat a cost, and sometimes you'll figure it out, or sometimes you lose a customer, and the world keeps spinning, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh no, I got my first
So
bad
it's
review.
like,
It's going to happen. It's inevitable that
let's
these.
take a breath. If you're in the moment, walk away from it a minute until you have a chance to, like, just calm down, and then come back and figure it out. Figure out your first next step, and then figure out the next one, and then figure out the next one. It's just like with this email. We don't have all the answers today. We may not right away, depending on what platform you use or what you're planning on doing or what the long term plan with Etsy is, for whatever email. But we know enough to start making some decisions around, Okay, automatic opt-ins, those are gone. What do we do now? Well, there's
Mm-hmm.
some options. Go forward with that option, and we just keep moving forward as business owners. But it's kind of figuring all of that out as you go and kind of starting to build up some of that resiliency to just handle the bumps in the road when they come, figure it out, give yourself, the grace to be frustrated, give yourself the grace to fail if that's what it is. But, figure out how to keep the wheels on the bus and keep moving forward so that you don't stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see so much of as these sellers, they hit these bumps and then they stop. Or they hit another bump and they just stop. It's like, if you want this to be successful, if you want to keep plugging through, like if you're still on Etsy, this email thing should not shut you down. This should not stop you. Figure your work around,
Yeah.
take your next step, make a decision if you need to change whatever, but keep on moving forward. Like don't stop when these things happen.
No,
You know.
this isn't even a pivot. This is just maybe kind of like a speed bump that now you have to kind of go
Yep.
around. It's not somewhere where you got to do a full 180 and kind of figure this out, right? So, yeah, I'm in a panic, but I believe this is part of the process. Yeah, there's no need to panic. It's literally nothing to worry about. Etsy hasn't even given enough information for us to be worried about anything yet. So it's not even like you know I don't know. Yeah, you're inevitably you're gonna have the terrible customer. You're a platform outage where right in the middle of Q4 maybe you got put on a payment reserve on Etsy's case, or those things will happen. And those aren't necessarily aside from the payment reserve. Hiccups and bumps along the way are not unique to Etsy. That's just e-commerce in general. And I think learning how to roll with the punches is part of doing business. Like you can't please everybody. Don't try to please everybody. Don't try to appeal to everybody. Um, yeah, that said, are you guys liking and have been watching thus far, please do hit that like button. It kind of helps us in the algorithm here. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Mandy so much for joining me. And again, we are going to be live on Tuesday at, what was it? I'm still working out my
10
CST versus
o'clock
EST.
Central, right?
10 Central, 11
We
Eastern.
finally figured out that we're both in the same time zone now. How crazy
Yeah.
is that? I'm up here in Minnesota and you're down. Look at that in Belize.
Straight down in Belize.
I'm having trouble focusing on your face, Jake. So I'm just like, wow, that looks really nice. It's cold and kind of been snowing off and on today. So.
Oh, sorry to hear. Yeah, it's beautiful here. I'm actually my right side of my body is now in the sun, and I'm cooking. So it's a perfect time to kind of pull the plug so I can get out of the direct heat here with my dark shirt. But love you so much, Mandy. Thank you for doing this with me. And again, looking forward to seeing you guys on Tuesday. We're gonna be talking all
Yeah,
things.
you bet. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, everyone.
No problem. Thanks for tuning in, guys.